Recording. Perfect. All right. So I just want to introduce Ian. Ian has spoke for BFO for years now. He was here a few months ago, but we're so honored to have him back here tonight. And as I said, Ian is a grief educator, and we're very lucky to have him. So whenever you're ready, Ian, it's all yours.
Good. Thank you very much, Jody. And thanks for everybody that's coming tonight. It's a very special time to be together. This is my 14th year, by the way, doing. I do three presentations a year with PFO, and I love them all. This is a very special time for me, grief in the holiday season. And I came across a little reading from the Champlain Hospice Palliative Care Program. It's really put together well. I just want to read a couple of paragraphs, and I'll give you some points. So we're saying here, milestone days and events can be emotional triggers that bring us to memories of where we were and what we did in previous years, intensifying our sadness by reminding us that the person who has died is not there this time. You may have difficulty sleeping, lose your appetite, become angry and irritable, or find that you are disinterested in your usual activities. These are all common elements of grieving. Um, in the years I've been doing this, I think I'm in year 20 doing grief work. I find almost everyone suffers initially after a loss. It's a like a disinterest that you have. It's called anhedonia. So anhedonia is your loss of spark. That you were just going along, and now this has happened. It's like your pilot lights kind of shrunk down, and you're in this kind of a not where you were before, and not where you're going to be, but in transition. So I'm a transition coach. That's what I try and do. And a couple of the tips they have here, no matter what you're feeling, it may help to remember that experiencing sad, confusing, and intense feelings at special times is normal and is a very common part of the grieving process. It's normal. Grief is actually a healthy response to loss, although you might question that at times, right? Grief has a timing of its own, sometimes appearing or disappearing when we least expect it, and the ebb and flow is very natural. It's a sign that you're coping in a healthy way. So I wanted to share with you some notes I put together over, the last 17, 18 years, I guess. Things I wish I had heard when I lost my wife 23 years ago. And I was lost. I was lucky enough to find Linda Hay, real pioneer in BFO in the past, and I worked with her for a few years. I ended up working with this program. So I'm just going to have to walk you through some points. I'll do a little question and answer after. So I'm just going to read these out, and if you have any notes, just make a point of it, and we'll talk after. So number one, understand that holidays will be different, and they may be difficult. Holidays may be very difficult this year, and even in your second year, third year. Try to avoid canceling the holiday despite the temptation. It's okay to avoid some circumstances that you don't feel ready to handle. It might be things you're not ready for, but avoid complete isolating yourself. But by the way, you know what time the holiday season started this year? It started in mid-October. And this is one of my pet peeves. I was in Dollarama, and they were putting out their Christmas stuff the first week of October, right beside their Halloween things. Can you just kind of tone that down a little bit? But the season goes so long. See, Thanksgiving can be tough. Easter can be tough, but Christmas, you have this going on for 2.5 months, and it is very, very hard. So let's just walk through some of these points, okay? It's important to recognize that every family member has their own grief experience and may be different needs relating to celebrating the holidays. You might want to not celebrate at all. Some people may want to celebrate. Some people may want to look at traditions. Some people may not want to. So this is my number one recommendation for families. Schedule a family meeting to plan for the upcoming holidays. That's why we run this program in November. Negotiate with family and friends, deciding how to make the holidays manageable. In other words, do you want to have a dinner? Where do you want to have the dinner? Do you want to have gifts? These are all things that need to be discussed as a family. Otherwise, it could be a lot of confusion. Decide whether or not you want to exchange gifts this year. You might say, well, I don't want to do gifts this year. That's fine. I don't want to have a Christmas tree this year. That's fine. I don't want to decorate. That's fine. I might want to do a minimal decorating. That's fine too. We're all doing this differently, right? And by the way, never compare your grieving to anyone else's because it's a unique experience. Everybody goes through it on their own. You need people to talk to. There's a difference between grief and mourning. By the way, grief is your internal response to loss. It's what goes inside here, and mourning is what's taking inside and going public with it. So one of the great services you have in this city is bereaved families because they're trained in how to work with you and how to companion you on your journey. And we need to be talking about it to heal. Grief is not meant to be handled alone. It's meant to be shared with other people. So it's very important. Okay. Give yourself permission to keep or eliminate or old traditions or to create new ones. A lot of people don't think about traditions, right? What are they? At one point, when something happened the first time, it wasn't a tradition. Happened the second time, and then it happened the third time. Then it started to become a norm, and then it's passed down through families and families and families. And I've interviewed families, and I'll tell you, half the families I interview, not on the subject of anybody with loss, would like to get rid of about half of their traditions because they're just not fitting anymore. But nobody ever brings it up. So you can always sit down with your family and say, do we want to do this? Do we want to do that? Do we want to add something new? Those are just some things we can look at, right? Be tolerant of your own physical and psychological limits. There is nothing more fatiguing than grief. I've never seen anything quite like it. You can be a go-getter. You can be running a major corporation. You can have 5 kids. But boy, when grief hits, it just drains you, and you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself. Physical limits. You don't have to go to everything you're invited to. Just make sure you're handling that as best you can, right? Be prepared to educate those who expect the impossible. I was talking to just someone the other day, and she was saying, I don't know what I'm going to do about my shortbread this year. My family is expecting it. I don't feel I'm ready to do it. And I said, then you need to share with them that this year you're not going to be able to do that. Yeah, but they're expecting it. Every year they want it. And I said, yeah, but you're not able to do it this year. So just tell them this year, taking a little break from that. I may come back next year. You need to let people know where you're at and what's reasonable and what's not. Okay, very important. Be prepared for tough questions. Now you're going to get these. How are you doing? Or aren't you over it yet? Which is one of my pet peeves that I hear sometimes, where people will say, aren't you over it yet? As if you're supposed to get over the loss of someone near and dear to you. And you never do. You never get over it. And that's not the goal. The goal is to heal and move forward in a way that you can now reinvest in your life without necessarily forgetting about the person. But we want to have them in a place in memory because you can't have them physically present anymore. So that's one of the real things with grief. When someone dies, you've lost the physical presence, right? The relationship, but you haven't lost the emotional one, and you haven't lost the spiritual one. So that's why I recommend with people, don't be afraid to talk to your loved one. That's quite common in the initial stages or phases of grief. You've lost them physically, but you still have that emotional attachment, right? If people are asking you, how are you doing? Please don't say okay when you're not. Just say, I'm really struggling. Thank you for asking. Because that's what you're pushing away people that might want to support you. So if
Mm.
someone is saying, how are you doing? You can say, well, I have good days. I have bad days. Thank you for asking. Some days are very difficult. And that's kind of, it's our job as widows and widowers and people who are grieving is educating other people because we live in a grief avoidance society right now. People don't know what to do, and that's why they kind of make it up. And when my wife died, the day my wife died, the funeral, my next door neighbor came over to me later in the day and just said, don't worry, there's lots of fish in the sea, which was very like what a shocking thing to say. But this is someone that didn't know what to say, so they said, I guess that's what I'll say, and they do. So I always say to people that have had a loss, be gentle as best you can with people that mean well, but they don't know what to do. So they may say things like, they've gone to a better place, or God needed a gardener, or things like that, because they don't really know what to say. And then they may never have gone through a loss like the ones that we've gone through, right? So if you hear how are you doing, just say thank you for asking. I'm really struggling. Be honest, be authentic. It will pay off in the long run. So accept social invitations according to your desire and energy, and explain to hosts that you may have to cancel at the last minute. This is a huge thing. It's called a conditional yes. So if someone says, "Would you like to come over on such and such a day?" You can say, "Well, it's kind of day to day with me, so I would probably say yes, but because it's day to day, on that day I might be having a tough day, and I might have to change my mind. Are you okay with that?" That's called a conditional yes. The opposite, of course, is a conditional no, where you say no, but if I feel better on that day, can I come and to that session, right? So, but I love the conditional yes. It works very, very well. When going to holiday events, if you're going, a couple of options. You can drive yourself, although I don't recommend that as the number one option. I would recommend you set up a buddy system with an understanding friend who will drive and leave whenever it becomes necessary. Um, I had a friend once ask me to be their buddy, and we went somewhere, and wasn't even 10 minutes. And they said, I think I can't stay." And I said, "Let's go." And you're with them, and you just say goodbye nicely, and it's very difficult, and you tend to leave. Okay, that's kind of a very nice way to deal with that. So, ask for help. Don't be embarrassed to inform others you may want and need for the holidays. Mind reading is often left up to fortune tellers, as I like to say. I don't know why we're so awkward in asking for help. I might be the poster boy for it in my lifetime before I figured it out. People are not going to know what you need unless you ask them.
Mm.
And what we often do, by the way, with people that have just had a loss, in my little gang anyway, we form a little team to be with the person that has died, and we find out what their needs are. And if they need the lawn cut or the snow shoveled or the dog walked or need a drive, we actually do it for them, and we don't allow people to drive at least for a month after a significant loss. So we have a little friendship committee to go and do those things for people. And I found people sometimes at funerals, they'll go up and say, "If you need anything, let me know." Well, people that are grieving won't tend to do that. But if you say to them, "I'll be calling you next week, um, think about what you need done. I'll ask you, and we'll see if we can help you out." It's very, very important, those little things. So you don't have to buy a tree this year. You may decorate less or not at all. Every year I've given away to people that didn't want a tree two Charlie Brown Christmas trees. I don't know if anybody has seen a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. They're about a foot tall, and with one little tree with one branch and one little ornament on it. And every year, it's going to be coming up next week. A friend of mine is going to be sending me an email saying Charlie is up. And this is a person that I worked with a couple about 8 years ago, and I said, "When you're finished with Charlie Brown tree, pay it forward." She said, "No, I'm keeping it." And every year I get this little email saying he's up. And that kind of starts what I'm doing. I got the email actually this morning, so it's really cute. We grieve not only for the person who died. Now this is also important. We grieve the life we lived with our loved one. So there will be necessary secondary losses to deal with. Okay, so the primary loss is the person The secondary losses are all the roles and things they did for you in your life. And I recommend every one of those needs to be grieved, every one of them. So if you had someone that cooked dinner, then when you're sitting there, why just talk and say, honey, for all the years that you made dinner, I really appreciate it. I miss you so much. I just wanted to thank you. And that when you do that, you're actually grieving every secondary loss. And there could be hundreds of them, by the way, depending on how long that you've been together. Right? Very, really important. Understand that heartaches will be unpacked as you sift through decorations. Appreciate the warm, loving memories of each piece. I have seen people that took them 2 and 3 years to get back to putting up a Christmas tree and putting the ornaments up because it's so difficult because they may have bought them together, but they're nice memory things, right? So often in your first year of grief, you'll have what's called grief bursts, where you'll see something and you'll just start to cry. And those grief bursts later will become memory embraces. It's really interesting. They just shift from being something you don't want to something that you do want. You want these memory things to come back, and that might be your person checking in to see how you're doing. My associate that I work with, Kim, we've developed a philosophy when we're working with people, and they say, when I have a memory of the person who died, I want to push it away. And I said, well, why would you push it away? Maybe it's them checking in on you to see how you're doing. I'm still getting mail from my wife. She died 23 years ago. I still
Okay.
get the odd mail, and when I get the mail, now I just look at it, and I just hold it. I'm so thankful. It's proof that she lived, right? Whereas in the first year after she died, getting mail like that was very, very difficult. So those memory grief bursts in the beginning may become memories down the road. So don't deny yourself the gift of healing tears. Crying is a natural outlet for grief. Certain memories may pop into your head that may bring tears of sadness or joy. Um, beware of this term, be strong. It's one of my things I really have trouble with, where people say, I need to be strong for my children. I need to be strong for my grandchildren. No, you don't. You need to role model authentic grief. And if you say, I miss Papa a lot, do you? They'll talk. But if you stay away from it, you're not giving them a chance to grieve as a family. So that whole be strong thing, there's times to be strong in life, but really when you're mourning the loss of someone special, you want it to be a family thing. It's really important. So, give yourself permission to feel joy as well as sadness during Christmas. It's okay to have a little bit of joy in there. It's okay to have some sadness. Also, give yourself permission to grieve, because some of you may not be doing that. Give yourself permission to cry. Give yourself permission to be angry, because anger is a natural part of the grieving process. I'm angry because my love was taken away from me, right? And we can deal with those things. We have trained facilitators to work you through that, right? Get yourself moving. Some days just putting one foot in front of the other is all you can do, but it's enough. Physical movement helps as you work through your pain. Now, this is really interesting about grief. Once grief starts, now grief will not start till you're ready. So you can be numb for a little while, be in a kind of a temporary denial. But when you're ready to grieve, and that's why I'm so pleased you're with bereaved families, because they're equipped to be companions for you. Talking about your grief's your number way of healing. Being emotional, crying is very, very important. Uh, Once you start healing, my question I often ask people is, how many of you have been a crawler at some point in your life? So now I don't have you all nodding your heads or everything, but every one of you was a crawler, right? When you were a baby,
Hmm.
you crawled, little baby steps. Well, grief is the same thing. It's little baby steps. So one day you're doing not too bad. The next day you're not. You're having a good day. You're having a bad day. Once you start your healing process, there's no going backwards. And if you please, if you only take one thing out of this session, understand this one. Once you start your healing, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have really bad days. It's all part of the process. It's non negotiable. It's part of the process. And you do your best healing on your worst emotional day. I know it doesn't make any sense, but there's nothing logical about grief. Queen Mary once said, grief is a cost of loving. So the more you love someone, the more intense your grief is. What's logical about that? Nothing, right? There's nothing logical about the best healing happens on your worst day. So if you're having a bad day, that's okay. At the end, just say, well, Ian said that was a good healing day. You can blame it on me. But the reality is it's very good for you to have that. And that's a tough one to kind of swallow sometimes, right? Give grief its voice. Avoid the elephant in the room, if you've ever heard that theory. I have a note here from Barbara Bush, former First Lady in the US, was complaining, and every time her family got together, there was the elephant in the room. She says, I hated that nobody mentioned her. It was as if she had never been. I know it was because our friends did not want to hurt us, but you don't think too clearly after a death. And a lot of people that you're going to be with will purposely not bring up the name because they think it's going to hurt you, and in reality, it's going to help you when they mention the name. But they don't know what to do. This is often another thing when, after maybe a couple of weeks after the funeral, people start pulling back from us, and you start going, where are they? And these are people that love me, or I love them, and they're waiting for you to invite them in, and you're waiting for them to call, and the responsibility falls on us as the griever. You don't need any more problems, but trust me, you need to reach out to them because they don't know what to say, and they don't want to say something that'll probably cause you more grief. We are in a grief avoidance society, right? So give grief its voice. Avoid the elephant in the room. Have a toast at dinner in memory of your loved one. I do this anywhere I'm going for Christmas. I always say I'd like to propose a toast for all the people that are here and all the people that are no longer with us. I think that's so important to do that, to remember people. Put out a memory stocking or a memory box where others can write down memories. I've come up with this technique, and I have sometimes when people are coming over to someone's place for Christmas, they write out a little memory story about the person and they put it in the stocking. And then they have the visit or the dinner. And then in the new year, the person will reach into the stocking and read the story and get the person's name, and they'll call them, and the person will explain the story and how that unfolded. It's one of the best healing techniques I've ever seen. It's a wonderful thing. Or you can do them. They can do them right at Christmas too. So, and they light a candle. I always do this one. Light a candle in your home in memory of the person you've lost. Kind of like that idea. So that's kind of the main things I wish I had heard when I was going through. I ended up, like I say, working with bereaved families, Linda Hay, and a whole bunch of other people, starting my own grief organization. I also do pet loss. I have in the last 14 years. I do that too, and it's just such an honor to get to meet people under I don't like the circumstances, but to meet people that just love and have so much loving in their hearts. It's a pleasure to be here. But just before any questions, sometimes if it's your first night coming to one of these sessions, you may have the next day what's called a grief hangover. And if you're wondering what that is, you might feel you've been doing okay, but then you have to have the courage, and it takes a lot of courage, to come one of these programs. And then the next day you wake up and you go, "Boy, why did I do that?" It's because grief alone you will not heal from. It's mourning you need, and it's getting it outside. Sometimes that can create some discomfort the first time you come. So when I'm working with someone, the rule I have is you can't leave what we're doing after one session. You have to have a minimum of two, because after one they might say, I don't think I want to do this. I'll say, bear with me, come back. And after the second session, things all start to settle. You start seeing some progress. And I've been with bereaved families a long time and watched them, and just it was so important for our city to have them. So Jody, thanks for the invitation. And if anybody has a question, I think we could go for 10 minutes or so. Eh? I have Jody there.
Monique, do you want to handle the questions?